The old man sat alone on the park bench, watching the two little girls play by the fountain. Their laughter carried across the autumn air like wind chimes, stirring something deep within him that he'd buried decades ago. A single tear formed in the corner of his eye, which he quickly wiped away before anyone could notice. He had become an expert at hiding his tears, but today would be different. Today, the walls he'd built around his heart would finally come crumbling down. If you're touched by what happens next, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Sometimes the most profound connections happen when we least expect them. Samuel Parker had lived alone for the past 15 years. At 72, his days followed a predictable pattern: coffee at 6 a.m., newspaper until 7, a walk to the park at 9, lunch at noon, television until dinner, then bed by 8. The neighbors called him Old Man Parker, and children crossed to the other side of the street when they saw him coming. Not because he was mean or frightening, but because he was a ghost of a man, barely present in his own life. His small house on Maple Street was immaculate but impersonal. No family photos adorned the walls. No mementos cluttered the shelves. The only evidence that Samuel had lived a life before becoming Old Man Parker was a small wooden box he kept locked in his bedside drawer. He hadn't opened it in years, but he couldn't bring himself to throw it away either. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Samuel sat on the same bench in Westfield Park. He didn't come for the fresh air or exercise. He came because routine was the only thing keeping him tethered to this world. On this particular Thursday in October, his routine was interrupted by the sound of children's laughter. Two little girls, perhaps 7 and 9 years old, were playing by the fountain. The older one had dark curly hair that bounced as she ran, while the younger had straight blonde hair tied in pigtails. They were taking turns tossing pennies into the water, making wishes with dramatic gestures and giggles. Samuel found himself watching them longer than he normally would. Something about their innocent joy pierced through the numbness he'd cultivated for so long. The older girl reminded him of someone, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the way she protectively held her sister's hand. "Lily, it's your turn," the older girl called out to her sister. Samuel's heart stopped. Lily. The name echoed in his mind like a bell tolling from the past. The younger girl closed her eyes tight, clutched a penny to her chest, and whispered something before tossing it into the fountain. Both girls erupted in laughter when the penny made a satisfying splash. "What did you wish for?" the older girl asked. "I can't tell you, Emma." "Then it won't come true," Lily replied with the seriousness only a child could muster for such matters. Samuel didn't realize he was crying until a tear dropped onto his hand. He quickly wiped his face, embarrassed even though no one was looking at him. He hadn't cried in public since the funeral. The girl's mother sat on a bench nearby, engrossed in a book but occasionally glancing up to check on her daughters. She was young, probably in her early 30s, with the same dark curly hair as the older girl. There was no father in sight. Samuel was about to leave, to retreat back to the safety of his empty house, when the unthinkable happened. The younger girl, Lily, noticed him watching and waved. Before he could react, she was skipping toward him, her sister following close behind with a cautious expression. "Hello," Lily said brightly, stopping a few feet from his bench. "Do you want to make a wish too? We have extra pennies." Samuel froze. It had been years since a child had spoken to him directly. He cleared his throat, trying to remember how to have a conversation. "That's very kind of you," he managed to say, his voice rough from disuse. "But I'm a bit old for wishes, don't you think?" Emma, the older sister, had caught up now and was eyeing him suspiciously. "Nobody's too old for wishes," she declared with the confidence of someone who had it all figured out. "Our grandpa is probably older than you, and he makes wishes all the time." Samuel couldn't help but smile at that. "Is that so? And do his wishes come true?" "Sometimes," Lily said, digging into her pocket and pulling out a shiny penny. "Here. You can have this one." It's extra lucky because I found it heads up. Before Samuel could protest, the little girl had placed the penny in his weathered hand. Her small fingers brushed against his palm, and for a moment, he felt a connection to the world that had been missing for so long. "Thank you," he said softly, closing his fingers around the coin. The girl's mother had noticed the interaction and was approaching with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Girls, are you bothering this gentleman?" "No, Mom," Lily exclaimed. "We're giving him a lucky penny so he can make a wish." The mother smiled apologetically at Samuel. "I'm sorry if they're disturbing you. They can be a bit enthusiastic." Samuel shook his head. "Not at all. It's nice to talk to someone new." Something in his voice must have revealed more than he intended because the woman's expression softened. "I'm Claire," she said, extending her hand. "And these are my daughters, Emma and Lily." "Samuel," he replied, shaking her hand briefly. "Samuel Parker." "Mr. Parker, would you like to make your wish now?" Lily asked, pointing toward the fountain. "You have to close your eyes really tight and think really hard about what you want." Samuel looked at the penny in his hand, then at the expectant faces of the two little girls. He couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him with such genuine interest. "I suppose I could give it a try," he said, slowly rising from the bench. His knees protested after sitting for so long, but he ignored the pain. The girls cheered and led the way back to the fountain, with Claire walking beside Samuel. "They don't usually take to strangers like this," she commented. "You must have a kind face." Samuel almost laughed at that. No one had described him as kind in years. Or perhaps they just feel sorry for the old man sitting alone. Claire studied him for a moment. "I don't think that's it. Children have good instincts about people." At the fountain, Lily instructed Samuel on the proper wishing technique with the seriousness of a professor delivering a lecture. "Close your eyes, hold the penny tight, think about your wish 3 times, then throw it in. And you can't tell anyone what you wished for." Samuel followed her instructions, closing his eyes and clutching the penny. What did he wish for? After 15 years of emptiness, what did he want? The answer came to him immediately, surprising in its simplicity: connection. He wished to feel connected to something, someone, again. He tossed the penny into the water, watching as it sank to join the others at the bottom of the fountain. "Did you do it right?" Lily asked anxiously. "I believe I did," Samuel replied. "Thank you for teaching me." Emma, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Why were you crying before?" Samuel stiffened. He thought no one had noticed. "I wasn't." "Yes, you were," Emma insisted. "When you were watching us. I saw you." Claire put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Emma, that's a personal question. We don't ask people why they're sad." "It's all right," Samuel said, surprising himself. Something about these girls made him want to be honest. "I was remembering someone I used to know. Someone named Lily, just like your sister." The younger girl's eyes widened. "Really? Was she your friend?" Samuel's throat tightened. "She was my daughter." The word hung in the air between them. Daughter. He hadn't spoken it aloud in 15 years. Claire's expression changed to one of understanding. "Is she?" "She passed away," Samuel said quietly. "Along with my wife, Margaret, and my other daughter, Sarah. Car accident. 15 years ago." The words came out more easily than he expected. Perhaps because he'd held them in for so long, or perhaps because there was something about this little family that made him feel safe. "I'm so sorry," Claire said, and he could tell she meant it. Lily, too young to fully grasp the weight of his words but old enough to understand loss, reached out and took his hand. "That's really sad. Is that why you were alone on the bench?" Samuel nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. "We can be your friends," Lily declared, as if it were the simplest solution in the world. "Right, Mom?" Claire looked at her daughter, then at Samuel. There was hesitation in her eyes, but also compassion. "We come to the park every Tuesday and Thursday after school. If you'd like company sometimes." It was an offer made out of kindness, probably one she expected him to politely decline. But Samuel found himself nodding. "I'd like that," he said softly. And so began an unlikely friendship between an old man who had forgotten how to live and a small family who reminded him. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Samuel would meet Claire, Emma, and Lily at the park. Sometimes they would feed the ducks together. Other times, the girls would show him their homework or tell him about their day at school. Occasionally, when the weather was nice, Claire would bring a picnic lunch for all of them to share. Samuel learned that Claire was a widow herself. Her husband, David, had died of cancer 3 years ago, leaving her to raise their daughters alone. She worked as a librarian at the local elementary school, which allowed her to be on the same schedule as her girls. "It's hard," she confided in him one day as they watched the girls play on the swings. "Being both mother and father to them. Trying to be strong all the time." Samuel nodded. "I understand loneliness," he said. "After I lost my family, I just stopped. Stopped trying, stopped caring, stopped living really. It seemed easier that way." Claire looked at him thoughtfully. "And now?" Samuel watched as Lily pumped her legs on the swing, trying to go higher, while Emma encouraged her from the next swing over. "Now I'm remembering what it was like to care about something." As the weeks passed, Samuel found himself looking forward to their meetings. He started taking more care with his appearance, trimming his beard neatly and wearing clean, pressed clothes. He began to notice things again: the changing colors of the leaves, the taste of fresh bread, the warmth of sunlight on his face. One Thursday in November, the girls didn't come to the park. Samuel waited on their usual bench for over an hour, a sense of dread growing with each passing minute. Had they tired of him? Had Claire decided it wasn't appropriate for her daughters to spend time with an old stranger? Or worse, had something happened to them? He walked home slowly, the familiar numbness creeping back into his chest. He told himself it was foolish to have become attached, to have expected anything different. People always left in the end. When he reached his house, he was surprised to see Claire's car parked outside. She was sitting on his front steps, looking worried. "Samuel," she said, standing as he approached. "I'm so sorry we missed our meeting. Lily has the flu, and Emma didn't want to come without her. I would have called, but I realized I don't have your number." The relief that washed over him was so intense it almost brought him to his knees. "Is Lily all right?" "She will be. It's just a bad case of the flu. She's home with my mother right now." Claire hesitated. "The girls were upset about missing our park day. They asked if you might come visit instead, once Lily is feeling better." Samuel stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. "Visit? At your home?" Claire nodded. "Only if you're comfortable with that, of course. They've grown quite attached to you." Samuel felt something shift inside him, like a door long rusted shut finally creaking open. "I'd like that very much." They exchanged phone numbers, and 3 days later, Samuel found himself standing on the porch of a small, cheerful house with yellow shutters. He carried a children's book he'd found at the bookstore, a story about a brave little girl who went on adventures, and a small stuffed bear for Lily. Emma answered the door, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Mr. Samuel. You came." She turned and shouted into the house, "Mom. Lily. Mr. Samuel is here." Claire appeared behind her daughter, smiling warmly. "Come in, Samuel. Lily's on the mend and very excited to see you." The inside of their home was everything Samuel's was not: lived in, colorful, filled with evidence of the family who resided there. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator. Books and toys were stacked neatly in corners. Photos of the girls at various ages adorned the walls. Lily was curled up on the couch under a blanket, her face pale but her eyes bright when she saw him. "Mr. Samuel. Did you miss us at the park?" "I did," he admitted, sitting in the armchair across from her. "It wasn't the same without you and your sister." He presented his gifts, which were received with enthusiasm. Lily immediately hugged the bear to her chest, while Emma examined the book with interest. "Will you read it to us?" Lily asked, her voice still raspy from her illness. Samuel hesitated, then nodded. "If your mother doesn't mind." Claire, who had been watching from the doorway, smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea. I'll make some tea." And so Samuel found himself reading aloud to the two little girls, something he hadn't done since his own daughters were small. His voice, rusty at first, grew stronger as the story progressed. The girls listened intently, occasionally interrupting with questions or comments. When the story was finished, Lily looked up at him with serious eyes. "Did your Lily like stories too?" Samuel swallowed hard. "Yes, she did. She loved stories about brave girls having adventures, just like this one." "What was she like?" Emma asked, her curiosity overcoming her usual caution. Samuel took a deep breath. For years, he had avoided talking about his family, as if speaking of them would somehow make their loss more real. But now, looking at these two little girls who had somehow worked their way into his heart, he found he wanted to remember. "Lily was 6 when she died," he said softly. "She was full of energy, always running and jumping and singing. She loved animals and wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. Sarah was 9, more serious, like you, Emma. She was smart and kind and always looking out for her little sister." The girls listened with solemn expressions, understanding instinctively the importance of what he was sharing. "And your wife?" Claire asked gently, having returned with a tray of tea and cookies. "Margaret," Samuel said, the name feeling both foreign and familiar on his tongue. "She was the love of my life. We met in college and were married for 12 years before the accident. She was a kindergarten teacher, patient and creative. She could make anyone laugh, even on their worst day." He hadn't realized he was crying until Lily reached out and patted his hand. "It's okay to be sad," she said with the wisdom of a child who had experienced her own loss. "My daddy died, and sometimes I still cry about it." Samuel looked at her in surprise, then at Claire, who nodded confirmation. "The girls were very young when David passed," she explained. "Emma was 6, Lily just 4. But we talk about him often, keep his memory alive." "I didn't do that," Samuel admitted. "After the funeral, I packed away all their things, all the photos. I couldn't bear to look at them. I thought it would be easier to forget." "Did it work?" Emma asked. Samuel shook his head. "No. I didn't forget them. I just forgot how to live without them." The conversation shifted to lighter topics after that, but something had changed. Samuel had spoken about his family, acknowledged their existence and their loss, and somehow the weight he'd carried for 15 years felt a little lighter. As winter settled over the town, Samuel's relationship with Claire and her daughters deepened. They still met at the park when weather permitted, but he was also a regular visitor at their home. He helped Emma with her math homework and taught Lily how to play chess. He fixed the leaky faucet in their bathroom and hung Christmas lights along their roof. For the first time in 15 years, Samuel decorated his own home for Christmas. It wasn't much, just a small tree and a wreath on the door, but it was a start. He even unlocked the wooden box in his bedside drawer and placed the family photo it contained on his mantel. Margaret, Sarah, and little Lily smiled at him from the silver frame, and though it hurt to look at them, it was a clean pain, like the sting of antiseptic on a wound that was finally healing. Claire invited him to spend Christmas Day with them, an invitation he accepted with a mixture of gratitude and trepidation. He bought gifts